What is configuration? Configuration allows you to modify or customize the application behavior. A configuration or setting is represented by a key value pair provided to the application when it starts. Multiple configurations are nothing but a dictionary of key value pairs. .NET has two types of configurations. One, host configuration. Two, application configurations. But to build a better mental model, I invite you to consider a metaphor of a thermostat that allows you to set the temperature for your home to trigger the HVAC, known as heat, ventilation, and air conditioning system, to achieve the desired temperature. But you can also set different temperatures for different times of the day. For example, you might set different temperature during the day than during the night. Based on the configuration, your HVAC system will either push the hot air or cold air to achieve the desired home temperature. Notice how the HVAC system is changing its behavior or functionality based on the configuration. .NET configurations works like thermostat and HVAC system, where HVAC system is the host and the thermostat acts as a source of the configuration for the HVAC system. But how do you provide the configuration's value to the .NET application so it can adjust its behavior when the value is changing? There are multiple ways you can pass values to the .NET application, such as a file deployed with the application, environment variables, command line arguments, or any other source such as remote store like databases. To encapsulate the multiple ways of passing values to the .NET application, .NET introduces a concept of configuration sources. By default, .NET uses JSON file as the configuration source for your application because it is well-known format to the developers and it is readable and can represent complex hierarchical data. Let's dive into code to learn more about configuration. To get started with the .NET application configuration, I'm going to create a new standalone hosted service project using the worker template. You can go to Solution, right click, add new project, select the worker service template here. I am going to name it define and use configuration and click on create. Remember, you can use .NET new command to create the new project as well. You can say .NET new worker -n define and use configuration. This will create the new project using the worker template. If you need help, you can type .NET new --help and it will list all the options available in the .NET new tool as well. As you can see, you can search, install, and create different projects using different templates. Project has been created. Let's take a look at the files created by the worker template. The first file is appsettings.json. This is the file where you will define all your application configuration. As you can see, there is already hierarchical configurations defined for the logging levels. The second file is appsettings.development.json. It has the same exact contents as the appsettings.json. Then what is the difference between these two? The only difference is that this file will only be used when the name between these two dots matches the application environment name. Now, what is the environment name? For that, I will have to show you a program.cs. Here we are creating the application builder using the host class. And when the application builder is created, if you go here, builder.environment, which is the type of host environment. And here you find that the environment name. This is the application environment name. What is the purpose of this environment name? The .NET SDK uses this particular environment name to enable and disable certain features when the application environment is different. For example, when the application environment name is set to development, you can use .NET user secret tool to put your secret keys and their values into a separate disk folder so you don't accidentally commit those. Similarly, in ASP.NET, for example, the developer exception page is enabled only when the application environment name is set to development. And the second purpose of this environment name is that when you are developing your application, the application goes through different life cycles. For example, first you develop on your local machine. That environment is known as development, but then you deploy it to staging, where your users test it for user acceptance testing, and then you go to production. So these are three environment names .NET has defined for you out of the box. But since it is a string, meaning that you can use this, you can use any string value to define your environment name. Now this environment name corresponds to the appsettings.development.json. So between these two dots, if your environment name matches, the .NET SDK will try to load that file and its contents into the .NET configuration key value pair dictionary. Now what will happen to the values that I will show you later, that how the overriding behavior works. But first let's learn how you can set this application environment name, which is a host configuration. The host configurations are normally set by two different methods. One is by environment variables, and the second is passing the command line arguments. So I am going to show you .NET run command, which is used to run any .NET project as long as you are inside the project directory you are running. You specify the project path or the solution path. I can say environment is equal to production, and specify this flag, no launch profile, which I will explain it to you that from where this flag is getting used, and why I'm specifying that. If I run this .run command, you will see that the application will emit some logs, and notice that the environment name is set to production. So that is one way to set the environment name. Now there is another way. I can set the .NET environment by specifying the environment variables. I'm on Mac, so I can simply say .NET _ environment equal to performance, and specify the .NET run command with no launch profile flag. In Windows, you can say set .NET _ environment is equal to performance if you are working in a worker service template. For ASP.NET application, you will have to specify ASP.NET _ environment to set the application environment. So let's run this application and verify that it is set to performance. You can see that it is set to performance right here. So you have learned how to set the environment name by specifying the environment variable and by specifying the command line arguments with -- environment. Here the prefix has been omitted. Now there is a third way, which is only there to help you develop quickly, because every time you want to run a project, you don't want to specify the environment flag, command line arguments are the environment variable. And that secret lies in the file launch settings.json. Launch settings.json's only purpose is to aid the IDE or the .NET run command. That is why we were specifying the no launch profile, because we don't want it to use any launch profile which is defined here. You can define multiple profiles right here, so that anything which is configured here would impact our command line arguments or the environment variables. Now, if there is only one profile, it will use the first profile available. Otherwise, you can specify a flag -lp and then provide the name of the profile. Then it will use that particular profile to run the project. Or you can select the profile name here and click on debug and run the project. It will use that profile accordingly. The most important thing here is that you can set different environment variables here, which will be passed to the application. For example, if I say here QA, you will notice that when I run this project, the environment is set to QA right here. And let me stop it and show you quickly in the debug mode. As you can see, the environment name is set to QA right here. Role in here. So let's go back to the launch settings and set it to development. Now this file should be loaded and we should see the impact of the values here. For that, first let's go ahead and define a configuration key value pair. What kind of key value pair? It's a JSON. It can define any hierarchical complex data key value pairs, but we will start with a very simple one. I am going to define a integer type key value pair named delay duration in seconds and in 1 second. Now here right now it is 1 second, but if I also specify the same key value pair in the app settings here, let me copy that. Dun, 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 dun. Come on. Here I can say it is value 2, Now, when you run your application, I will show you shortly how you can assess the application configuration values at the runtime. But when you run the application, this value will take precedence because the application environment is set to development, and this file exists here, and .NET SDK loads this file, and after that it loads the environment specific file. And when it loads the environment specific file, it will check if there is any key which is already present in the dictionary. If it is, then it will simply replace the value of that particular key. So as you can notice here we said 1 second, and here we said 2 seconds. Now let's try to use this particular key inside the application. As you can see, this is service, and let's remove this breakpoint. It is worker service, and worker is inheriting the background worker service, and it is just simply running a loop until the token cancellation is requested, and then it is delaying for 1 second. Now this is a hard-coded value. How I can replace this value with the configurable value? Well, we just defined a key named delay duration in second. We can use that, but to assess that, we would have to inject the service iConfiguration. And by using this configuration, I can assess the key value pair dictionary, and I can simply say like that and get the value of duration, delay duration. Let me name it properly in seconds. And it is of type string, and it can be null. And now I know this exists, and I can simply say int.parse and delay duration in seconds. And let's express it since we know. But this is one of the disadvantage by when you use untyped interface methods or magic strings, that you have to check nulls and pass the values. We will learn how to fix that in the upcoming videos. But let's put a breakpoint here and try to debug it so you can see clearly that what is the value of this particular thing. As you can see, the value is 2. Let's check out the values here. We said 1. So since this key value is 1 here, but it is overridden here. It depends on the order the .NET SDK is loading the sources. Since this is loaded after this one, so it has overridden the value of this particular key. Now going back to the worker here, now every time it will delay for the 2 milliseconds. So we have to parse, basically specify the time span to have the time correctly. So let's just say that time span. Let me just copy that. Okay. It's from seconds. Okay, now as you notice that we are doing the parsing ourselves, but .NET, the iConfiguration interface offers some nice extension methods such as getValue, and you can provide the type. It is int type, and then you can simply provide the name of your key. Now this method by default uses the default value of int of your type, but here you can specify your default value if you would like to, and then use that. I'm going to use this particular thing now instead of doing the parsing myself. Now remove that, and we don't need to parse it right now, and we can use today. So this is one of the nice extensions. It is already referring it, so I can say you can remove it. Since we provided the last default value, if you don't provide, then you have to provide the integer typed argument to the extension method. Now the question is, from where this configuration is coming from? Well, when you create a application builder and build it, .NET SDK adds by default a lot of services, and one of those services is iConfiguration. So iConfiguration has access to the dictionary, which has the key value pairs loaded from different configuration sources. And we have just seen 2 configuration sources in action, and I already showed you how you can pass the environment name, which we saw that it can be passed by CLI argument, which is another source, and also by setting the environment variables as well. Now I want you to show exactly how appsettings.json and appsettings.environment name, which is development or production.json, are loaded, and when they are loaded. If you go to the source code in here, so you can set that up in your IDE. Here we are creating the application host, okay, and then we're calling another constructor. Okay, the first thing it does is it creates the whole builder settings, and then it creates the configuration manager, which does implement iConfiguration as well. Now, first of all, it is loading all the environment variables which has a prefix of .NET underscore, and add those to the configuration manager, which has internal logic to how to parse and how to put those key value pairs into the dictionary. And then comes the apply default app configuration. Now let's take a look at the implementation of this method. The first thing it does is it gets the host environment, which I showed you in the program.cs. It is a type of host environment. Then it gets the reload config on change value. by default it is true, then it adds the JSON file. As you can see, it is added right here, and then it adds the environment specific file. That is why we were seeing the value 2 available, because it is added after. So dictionary key value pairs. So sources are read into the configuration manager, and if the source which is added later has the same key value pair which was already present in the dictionary, then the value of that key will be replaced. So that is why the order of those sources matter. Now another thing I want to show is the reload on change. Reload on change simply means that .NET SDK will detect any changes in your application configuration file and reload all the key value pairs into your application without restarting the .NET application process. So you can start using the new values and adjust your application behavior. You can override the value of appsettings.json by looking at this code. See, it is getting a value for this key. So if you provide the value of this key via command line arguments, you can change the default behavior. I will show you shortly how, but let's look at the other code we see here. These files are optional as well. This is another argument of this extension method, which we are also going to look at shortly. Now, what this optional means that if you delete these two files, your application will still run. These are not mandatory files. The next thing is very important. If you notice here, it is using the environment name. Similarly, the environment name corresponds to the file. It gets loaded into the configuration key value pairs of dictionary. Similarly, here you can see that it is checking if the application name is set and environment is development. Only then it uses the .NET user secret table, which I explained earlier. Then it loads the environment variables, and then it loads the command line arguments. Now, what values you will get finally in your application? Well, it depends upon how you are loading or adding those sources while building the host. By default, the app settings gets added first, then the environment specific JSON, then the user secret tool .json, then the environment variables, and then the command line arguments. So if the key is present in multiple sources, the value you will get in the application is from the last source added into your builder configuration sources. You can also see here that in the diagram I have app settings comes down, and this is the values you will get, and they can get overridden if they are present in multiple sources. Now let me demo you the reload on change, which is an interesting bit, how you can change the behavior of reload on change for app settings.json and app settings.development.json. Let's go in here and make this change as development. So I can development, and here we have 1 second. Now if I run this, see how I am providing the value for the key host builder .reload on configuration, which is where is the host builder extensions. So if you can see, this is the same key which .NET SDK is using to get the value, and default is true. Now here I'm saying it is true just to show that it should print a log after every second. Now if I go to the app development.json and change it to 2 and save it, you will notice that now the logs will start printing after every 2 seconds. Now if I don't want this behavior for whatever reason, what I can do is I can say false, and now you will see the first few messages will come after 2 seconds. 48, 44, 42, correct. Now let me change back to 1 second, and you will notice that the messages will not come after a second. It will keep at 2 seconds. So this is a nice trick. You can override the values that we know that it is getting over. It is getting added by reading from the configuration, since the CLI arguments are present in the host context itself. If you just go, let me go back to the code. If you see, this host context is reading these configuration values here, and these host contexts have a special use case. I want to show you here. Let's go back and try to find. This is just for the nice trick to have. So see, this is the host context, and it is passing out the, if you go here, it is adding the command line arguments here, and then this configuration gets passed to the host context, and that the host context is getting used before adding the value. That's how we were able to override the reload on change for the appsettings.json and appsettings.development.json. .NET SDK loads these application settings.json files by default, but what if you would like to change that? You don't like the name, so you would like to use a different name. Well, add.json is just an extension method on the configuration builder. And when you go to the program.cs, you can access the configuration manager here, which implements the iConfiguration builder. Means that you will have the extension method available right here. As you can see, add JSON file. So this is what exactly the builder extensions, exactly this is using. So I can simply copy that from here as well. I can just type, I can say that, and instead of app settings, let's say that I want to call it settings.json, and here I can either get the value from my config, command line arguments or environment variables. So instead of app builder, I will have to say builder.configuration. So this file will get added to the list of sources. How? Because if you go in the extension method itself, it calls another method here, and it is adding a JSON file which accepts as a configuration source. So here, what you are doing is, based on the parameters passed to the add.json extension method, you are specifying a source, which is a JSON configuration source, which is a complex topic, which we will discuss in detail when we're discussing the overall architecture of the .NET configuration. .NET team has written excellent code, but it is a lot of code, and you have so many options. Let's get back to the work. So yeah, this settings.json here, it has the same impact. I just need to, it's an optional. Now, optional means that if I run the application, it will still run without any problem, because this is an optional file. Okay. If I copy the same file here, let me actually delete that. It's not serving any purpose right now, and call it settings.json. Add it. All right. I don't want that. I don't know what you're doing. So let's remove that as well and go back here. Now what will happen is, whatever the value, since this is the last source added, if I provide a value of say 30 seconds here, my application actually should log a message using the hosted service worker after 30 seconds. As you can see, the first message is at this time, second is 30 seconds, and the next one is after 30 seconds. Well, you have seen that. Now the question is, how many sources are there? Well, we can assess that. We can say configuration. So source is a property, and we can loop over it. Let's loop over it and say it where configuration source, and configuration source get type. We can log it. Now I want to show you how many by default gets added, and we can inspect that. We can see what kind of values it has. It will load all the values. Now, what if you would only like to use one file, settings.json, and in your CI/CD pipeline, you are using some transformer to replace the values based on your environment or your own settings. Well, you can simply say builder dot configuration dot sources dot clear. When you do that, all these sources and their configuration values either will be cleared, because host configurations are already set and host at this point is built, and you cannot change the host settings anymore now. Now if I run this application, let's take a look at the configuration sources, then we will clear that, and then you can step into the debugger here. Now as you can see, I have list of sources right here, 7. The first one is memory, initial data is null, then it adds the one key. You can see it's content root specifying from which path the files will be read, and then has the environment variable configuration source, and then there is another one, app settings, and then there is another one, development one, and then here we have the secrets. So these are all options since we are running in development environment. So it wouldn't impact our application. That's why the application still compiles and runs, because this file is an optional added by default. And then we have the environment one as well. Now, if I can print the name and then have 5, here I'm gonna clear it. Now, as soon as I clear it, there are no sources added now, and no configuration values are also present. So right here, now if I add that, now if I go back to the sources, there should be a one source now. As you can see, settings.json, it will be reload delays 250 seconds by default for all the files. Well, you can change that when you are adding your own source. For that, you have to implement a custom source, or you will have to specify this configuration somehow. We'll take a look at how you can override that. There is usually no need, but we can definitely override it by implementing our custom source. That's for sure. All right. Now, since we are adding only one file, so only these keys will be available from after this line executes. Now, if you want to access any values, the only values you will get will be available via this settings.json. All the previous configuration values are clear. So must be present, otherwise my application should not run. Let's delete that. You will see that now. Remove this breakpoint, this one, and try to see what will happen. It should throw an error while running the application. As you can see, the file is not found on the specified path itself. You still remember that in the start of the video, we use this configuration key to specify the delay in seconds, right? But this is a very basic and very simple configuration key value pair present in the root, as JSON can represent complex hierarchical data as seen when we are defining the logging levels. As seen, first level is logging, then inside its log level is another object, then that object has multiple keys. What if you would like to access this default log level? How would you do that? Well, you will follow the colon convention as it is written in the JSON. Logging colon log level colon default, that is the key name you will use to get the value information. Similarly, if you want to get the value of this logger, you would use logging log level, and then this whole key, you will get warning. Let me go ahead and it's warning in here and show you actually in the worker. I have written some code to make it a little quicker. Now let's put a breakpoint here and run it. You will see that two different values available when you point toward the debugger. So it's information, and here it is warning. So you will use the colon conventions. All the dictionary key value pairs added by the your files will always be following the colon convention. The environment variable. Now you have seen how to assess the values, hierarchical values, but JSON can represent more complex structures, like you can have arrays in here, right? So how do you assess that value? Well, let's define an array, and I will quickly show you. I would say, let's put a comma here. Let's say workers, and in here I make an array, and here I say email worker. So you cannot have a key like that. Let's define a worker here, and inside that I define a worker to make it more complex. Email worker delay duration, and in here I say 4. Similarly, let's define another worker here. I can say the SMS worker delay duration is in second, duration in 60 seconds, right? Now, how do I assess the array values in still using the iConfiguration key convention, meaning the worker is at root, and then I would have to traverse the array indexes, and then I will assess this value. So let's go ahead in the worker here, and let's say email worker. Now, what I said is workers, and then I will have to specify 0, and then what is the key name here? Let's copy that and say it like that. Since it's an integer, let me specify the integer here, and I will put a breakpoint here. Let's run it, and let's find out that if we're able to get the value correctly. You can see it is 4. Let's go back. It is 4. Now, you are only getting the value of the first worker. If you want to get the value of the second worker in that array, you would have to follow the indexes of that array. So you would specify, instead of 0, what you would say is, you would say 1. Well, you have learned how to assess the application configuration values using the iConfiguration service injected by the .NET SDK. But the problem with this is that it all uses the magic strings. You can misspell a key here, and now you will always be getting the value of 1 because this key does not exist in the app settings. Well, it's a big problem if it is an important configuration and you rely on the configuration value per environment, and it can create serious bugs. Also, what if you would like to specify that this value provided by the configuration should not exceed 60 seconds, and you would like to get error on star rather than a runtime bug, which is hard to trace and it may even corrupt your data, right? I can also miss the key in here while still using the correct spelling in the code. So there are a lot of gotchas when using this. .NET provides you few extension methods like get values using the default value. You can get a section here by the section name, and it has an exist method. So this way you can check, but I will have to do all the code when I am using the configuration iConfiguration interface within that worker or within my service. If I'm using it in multiple places, I might have to type correctly. Well, you can extract the extension, these keys to the constants, but there will always be a chance to misspell somewhere, or it will create duplication. If you have very few configurations and you are migrating .NET Framework application to .NET 8 or .NET 6, and you already have some constants defined and you are relying on the iConfiguration or configuration manager, well, you are all set. You don't need to do anything else. But if you are writing a .NET 8 application, there are way much better alternates available, such as you can bind the configuration values with the strongly typed objects like a class automatically. .NET 8 does that using reflection, but you heard that reflection is slow. Well, I will show you how you can enable ahead of time compilation only for your configuration binding using options patterns. Well, the options pattern is awesome. It allows you to validate, perform post validation approach, post configuration operations. You can validate on startup. You can bind complex objects, any hierarchical objects. You can validate those hierarchical complex objects. For example, you can even validate how many items should be there in the array. This will be discussed, and I will teach you in the second longer video of the configuration in .NET course. For now, if you like my video so far, kindly do subscribe. I would love to have more subscribers. I only have few. Well, thank you if you do, and even if you don't, just keep watching. Till the next time, bye bye.